Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew. Welcome to this week's Q&A session. Just going to give a minute for the others to join. I've enabled the chat, so if you want to have any chit-chat, we can certainly use that chat window to do so. If you have any questions, please post them into the Q&A section. Any questions that we can't answer during the Q&A session, we will redirect them to our ticketing system. If you have questions pertaining to an existing iGUIDE, especially if it's regarding any measurements, issues, or questions that you may have, generally speaking, those will be answered through our ticketing system, but if we can review something, using my example iGUIDE, we can certainly do that. All right, so you should be able to see Stitch on my screen. Happy New Year. Your question is it possible to add measurements taken separately to a floor plan? No, so the measurements we use are going to be from the iGUIDE camera. What you do with your documentation after it's been produced, so if you edit your documentation, that's certainly up to you. There are some PDF editors that you can use. Again, that's not something that we are producing, that's something that you're editing. So I would recommend that if you are going to produce something, you keep them separate, but you won't have the separate measurements. Recently, I had a client requesting Imperial DXF. So currently, they're only available in metric. And so far as I've been informed, there's no intentions of changing them to Imperial. I can understand why a lot of requests might be made for Imperial measurements. Similar to the previous question, I would recommend bringing that one to the forums and just highlighting that desire. And if there's enough people chatting about it, perhaps that's something that could be implemented. At the moment, you just simply have to do those conversions from metric to Imperial. But to answer your question in short, there's no Imperial DXFs. Just metric. All right, well, while we wait for some additional questions to come in, I will resume what I was going to show you here. So if you get home or to your office and you notice your data looks something like this, I call this the spider web, but you can come up with any creative name that you like. Scribbles, if you will. There's a couple ways to remedy this. So to prevent it from happening in the future, what you'll want to confirm is whether or not you have your auto align enabled. And you can do so by going on survey and going to your settings and ensuring that your auto align is enabled and that you've saved your settings. What that will do is allow you to take your panos, and so long as you're having line of sight between each pano, it'll auto align or snap the panos into place. And will avoid a lot of work on your end after the fact and can save countless hours during the alignment process. However, if you've noticed that too late and you get home and you see this, there are a couple ways to remedy this. There's the manual option, which is individually moving panos and piecing them together like a puzzle. It's time consuming, but if you like to do puzzles, then that is probably the most accurate way to do it. However, if you want to speed things up, there's actually the arrange all scans option, or number 1 on your keyboard. If I press that, the system is going to do its best to look at data, look at overlapping data, and see if it corresponds with the data from another pano. So in this instance, it's taking the front hall and the little study area, and it's going to say, okay, I think these two go together. Is this correct? It gives you a prompt at the top of your screen. I'm just going to bring it down to the middle here. Are they in the correct position? I'm going to click yes, because again, if you're on site, you'll recognize some of these spaces. So you click yes. Okay, it's going to attempt to do the same thing using line of sight and overlapping data. You can click yes. Now, if you don't want to do this individually, you can click yes to all. I would recommend going individually just to confirm. However, you can click yes to all. It'll process, depending on your computer speed, which could be pretty quick. And you'll have something that resembles a floor plan. Now, you'll notice some of the pieces didn't quite get placed. So then we've got this one down here and this one over here. The system didn't know where this one would fit, so it just kind of moved it off to the side. So we'll have to manually place that. And another pano down here. That's not to assume, however, that all of the rest of these panos are in the correct location. So what you're going to want to do is from the top, go panel 1, 2, and just make sure that everything is lining up. 3, 4. And you can see if something looks out of place, you'll be able to capture it. Capture it, I mean, move it and manipulate it to where it needs to be. Or you could place your cursor over the panel that you want to inspect and then press the space bar. Doing so, now I can see that I can see the front door in the top part of the visual portion of this data. And I can also see that it's pointing down here towards the bottom left of the panel. So if I look at this next panel right next to it, I'm actually in a different space altogether. So one of these two panels is not correct. How would I confirm this? Well, I'll go to this front panel, the front foyer, and I'll look into this room here. So I know that if I look here, I'm going to see this little lounge room, the little study area. And so if I go here, it's the study area. So these two panels correlate with one another. But this panel does not belong here. So I'm going to take it off to the side. Now I know that the front door is there, and I know that the front door is here. And so if I look, and I'll see that there is this room here with the door open. There's some items on the wall. I can see that it goes down some steps. So if I navigate back to that panel, I'll see that there's the steps up to the front door, and there's the door. There's some of the items in reference. So perhaps I will place it here, and I'll press 3 on my keyboard to snap it into place. And there you go. And you'll want to do this for every panel. Make sure that every panel is in the correct location. Here's another one. This panel is next to this hallway panel. It's not in the correct location. So simply move it over. Make sure that it lines up. Press 3 on your keyboard. It'll snap it into place. And that's it. Now we know there's a door here. So we might run into a panel later on, which would be this one. So looking at this panel, I can look out the visual portion. So we know that it's pointed down this way. So pointing down, it hits some walls here. You can see what visual items give us a clue as to where this is placed. So if I go here, I can see that there's this workbench area, this little display table. So I can bring it over here and snap it into place. And you would just continue to do this for every panel just to make sure. Now this, again, this could all be avoided. This is a remedy to alignment issues. This can all be avoided if you take proper line of sight with enough overlapping data and the auto align feature being enabled. That the entire process can be avoided. And so I wouldn't concern yourself too much with how to do this if you're dedicated to having proper line of sight throughout the entire property. This one has line of sight. So from the foyer to here, we've captured enough space. From here to here. This one it does have line of sight, but I would have preferred a panel perhaps closer to where my cursor is. And then this one over here is fine. This door being opened would have also been preferable. And then another one with it shut. And I understand that this one's open here so I can capture the inside of this space, but just ensuring that you have enough data, perhaps a second panel up here actually would have been good too. But it's really going to be a learning experience to see how much data you really need. There's another panel that's kind of a rogue panel, as we'll call it. So we're going to grab that. We're going to move it off to the side. We're going to see that it's pointing up towards the garage. We know that there's some of the data here that looks like it might fit. There's the garage door up here where my cursor is. I'm going to select this panel. I can see this is the front driveway. So these are the double doors. And so they look to be pointing at one another. So that looks like it's in the right spot now. And we just go through every panel and just make sure that they are correct. Now this is the back window, backyard. And there's that one long panel over here. You just left click on the panel, drag it over, holding down the right click on your mouse, on your 3-button scroll wheel mouse. You can rotate it. And if you don't have a 3-button scroll wheel mouse, I recommend you get one. You can pick one up on Amazon or one at Best Buy. They're pretty low cost. I would highly recommend it if you don't have one. It will make the alignment process much easier. So again, when you're aligning data, just make sure that the visual context matches where you're placing it. So if I look here, I can see that the laser data is pointing roughly here. I can see that the door here is the glass doors. So if I were to go to this panel, I can look out and I could say, yep, I can see that this glass door is here. And so that these two should, in fact, be lined up together. Now for the exterior shots, they don't have to be perfect, but as close as possible is ideal. Second floor. And you would just repeat this process all throughout the property. So if you're going up, you can take a Pano down there. You could still keep it on this floor and just hide the Pano if you want. That's not too important. Our drafters know how to deal with that sort of data. Again, line of sight is adequate here. A Pano in this location where I'm kind of moving my cursor would have been ideal because then it would have looked into this door here. And then from here, we could have had a Pano that would have connected. So this Pano here, actually, if it was moved over just like this, would have been better just so that it can see out the door, giving us that connection. Another benefit of having line of sight properly done while you're on site is that if I were to navigate into this area, I'm going to see that panoramic halo, if you want to call it that. Some people call it halos. You're going to see that Pano image through the wall. And so for a better user experience, placing a Pano on the floor here so that it looks into the room, and then one more Pano inside the room so that it looks out of the room. That way you can click and navigate more seamlessly like you would if you were actually at the property. Same thing happens here. So this example is great for showing limited line of sight, even though there's enough data to actually draft the space. So again, we would be clicking through the wall to get into this bathroom because they just simply didn't have the Pano in the right location. And then as you're going through it, you can press 3 on your keyboard. And that'll actually just snap the Panos into place. It's not always necessary. Sometimes it just kind of tightens up that data. So this is a bedroom. This is the same bedroom. So you're gonna have to look at visual markers. You know, if you've got rooms that look similar, you're gonna wanna make sure, okay, am I looking at the same room? And if I am, where are things placed? There's our door, there's our closets, there's our bathroom over there. Again, lack of line of sight. So the alignment process is a bit more tedious with a data set like this. More time for you as the operator. You'll see here, it's a bit of a transparent version of a human. Make sure that you're out of the shot before you take that Pano. Yeah, and then again, with the basement, when you're on site, you can select below grade. If you've forgotten to do that, you can always do that in Stitch. You just click on the floor and select below grade, and then just do your alignment. If you're in the basement, you're not sure if you should capture the space, capture it anyways. It's never a bad thing to have too much data. I can't think of any good examples anyways. Right click on the panel that you do not want displayed. So let's say they've got a storage room. Right click on it in Stitch, hide in iGUIDE. That will hide that visual view, but at least we still have the laser data that will allow us to draft the space. If an area of the home, especially in the basement, is particularly cluttered, as best as you can, capture as many panels as you can. So, let your client know that you need access to all areas of the property. But when you're there, don't worry if it's not presentable, and let your client know that it's not important. You just need the visual laser data for the drafting purposes, but all of that will be invisible for the public view. When dealing with the cluttered rooms, you want to make sure that you're capturing all four walls. If there's a lot of stuff, multiple panos from multiple positions in the room will help. But if it's just too much stuff, there's only so much that can be done. So just do your best to capture as much data as possible. When in doubt, extra panos. If there's a closet with a lot of clutter, and sometimes you're told not to open up a closet, just let your client know you need to capture all spaces, especially if it's an exterior wall. And so they'll have to create one shelf of cleared out for you, at least so you can capture that one shelf. If you've got the Planix, you can put the Planix on the shelf if you can do so safely. Capture it, hide the image in the iGUIDE so that no one will see it, and at least we've got the laser data. Shower curtains work similar to closets. You'll want to open up the shower curtain, take your pano, capture the data, and you can close the shower curtain again and take a secondary one. Obviously, the secondary one with the shower curtain closed is what you're going to display to the public. If you're doing exterior shots, so this is about the distance you want to be from the property initially. You can move further back. When the iGUIDE gets published, the further the panos are, the more zoomed out it will appear to compensate for the scale. However, you can set your initial zoom to whatever you like. So if, for example, your floor plan has lots of panels like this, but you want to zoom it in, you can actually, using our zoom feature here, zoom it in. You can zoom in as much as you want. Well, within reason, you can zoom in quite a bit, and you can set the initial zoom. So if you've got a lot of exterior panos, but you found that the property is quite small on the floor plan here, just zoom it in, and then just set initial zoom. And then of course hit save. You can still navigate to them, but at least your floor plan is, front and center stage on our little mini floor plan viewer here. So going back to this example, if you're going to take your exterior shots, take another pano here, another there, perhaps one at the corner. You can do the entire perimeter of the home if you want. It's really going to be up to your client if they want those displayed, if they find value in it, perhaps, they want to showcase the new windows or perhaps some of the gardening or landscaping. If you're on site, the way I see it is it's probably going to take you an extra 5 minutes to go around the house. So depends on the house size, of course, but it's probably worth your time and effort to do so unless you know for a fact your client won't like it. If they don't like it, you can always just disable them. Never delete them. Well, I won't say never, but there's hardly ever a reason to delete your panos. You can simply hide them. So in Stitch, you would just right click and hide in iGUIDE. No one will see them other than yourself or us. And you can always enable them later if you want. Question has come in regarding interior and exterior shots. So the best setup is really going to depend on your circumstances. If you're, it depends on which HDR settings you want to use. It's going to depend on, is the terrain level. So the setup, you might need to be a bit more specific with your question there, but it's really going to depend on you and your experiences, and whatever you feel is appropriate given the context that you're in. So if you need to change your settings, you can go to your settings and HDR, and you can change them to whichever one is best suited to your needs. I would recommend you play around with them just so you can see which one is going to be better suited to your circumstances. You can also click on the bottom left and you can change the HDR, so it's a lot faster than going to the settings each time. So rather than going to settings or menu, settings, and then select an HDR, you can actually just tap this on the bottom left of your screen. It'll bring this menu up and you can. Okay, so the follow-up question is regarding exposure levels for lighting. Yeah, that's going to be something you're going to have to determine, while you're on site. See which settings are going to be best suited to your environment, lighting. What I would recommend is if in your own office or your own home, pick one location near a window and try each of the settings and see which one gives you the results that you deem are appropriate, and then just see what other lighting conditions might impact those same settings. And you'll get to know your system and see where you need to switch the HDR settings and for what circumstances. Great question. So we've got a question regarding capturing still images. So let's use our front one, for example. Let's say we wanted to capture this front here in Stitch. So we can zoom in. Actually, let's capture the living room. It's a nice one here. All right. So you pick the panel that you'd like to capture, or perhaps you want to capture everything. You would go up to your camera icon or take snapshot. You're going to go ahead and take your snapshot. It's going to process the panorama. Unfortunately, it loaded on my other screen here. I'll just bring it over. And so it'll produce a still image. And you can do so by picking the angle that you like. So let's say we go with that. Yeah, let's go with that. And you can set your grid patterns, whichever you like. Okay, aspect ratio. And then, of course, you can click capture. It's going to ask where you want to save it. This computer is probably reaching its limits for multitasking right now. So there we go. So it automatically puts them into the folder where your project is saved. Let's see if I can find an example of what that would look like for you on your end. So let's just say this is your project. You'll have a new underscore snapshots folder. And if I take a new shot from a new angle, capture, it's going to end up in that folder. And I can just keep going through. I can go to the next Pano. Let's say I want to go to the next Pano. And you can just navigate. And you can take snapshots all throughout the property. Again, this is another reason why I always say it's better to have too many Panos than too few, because this just gives you more to work with. And you can take another one, capture, and they're all just going to end up in this folder within your project. Actually, that brings me to another topic. Thank you for messaging me that. If your iGUIDE's been processed, let's say it's a similar enough image, and we'll go over to the original. Let's say this is the image. We didn't capture those still images, but we'd like to. You can do that through the Pano image replacement option. You can actually download the images, and then you can manipulate them as you like. So when you go into your iGUIDE, go to Edit. We're going to go to Edit at the top again. And then we're going to scroll down. We can pick our panel that we'd like to view. And you can go to Pano image replacement. I could have done that from here, actually. And from here, you can actually download the panoramic shot. When you upload it, make sure that the file name has not changed. So keep the file naming conventions the exact same. And the max resolution when you're re-uploading it to the portal is 7200 by 3600. And the max file size is 10 megabytes. The Magician Hat is a pretty useful tool, but pretty basic. You can manipulate some of the images in Stitch. So this is for you to play around with, but you can essentially, if, for example, you're using the IMS5 or your tripod was slightly off, for example, you see how the images are like this. So just let's say you've got some minor issues with your tripod. You can manipulate the image just ever so slightly to correct any slight imbalances. Ideally, that's not the case because that'll also throw off your laser. So always make sure that your tripod's level. But that is one use of it. Commonly, this would have been used for the IMS5. If you didn't make the full connection point for your rotation on your camera, that would have been very useful for that. But you can mess around with the roll and pitch. Again, this is from the IMS5, this example. So you'll see that there's the 3 panel shots. And you can kind of play around with the images there. Goodness me. go. Let's revert all that to the way it was. Not save it. And then again, you can play a bit with the temperature. So if you want more of a warm look or a very cool look, these are all going to be for you to play around with. The tools are, I mean, most people will use third-party software. I know some operators, most of the operators that I know of, they'll use, Photoshop. Some, I've had a couple of people using GIMP, which is open source software. If you don't have any software to work with, it's a place to get started. Again, not recommending any one in particular, just whatever fits your needs. Yeah, just a lot of color manipulation, and you can play around with the shadows, highlights, brightness. Very few instances where I can picture this actually being useful, shutting down the brightness, unless, of course, it's blown out too much. When you make a copy of the original iGUIDE, it generates a new link. Is there a way to personalize or personalize the link that is copied? So unfortunately, the duplicated version, so as you can see here on screen, I've made a duplicate iGUIDE for this exact example. So the first URL, the primary iGUIDE, that URL can be edited. However, when you make a duplicate, it will make a essentially random characters that cannot be edited. So if you're going to be linking this on your own website, you'll just create a custom text and just hyperlink it to this link here. So yeah, you'd have to do some of your own customization to redirect to this URL, but this URL itself cannot be edited. Okay, final question here. Pano update versus Pano replacement. Great question. So Pano replacement is essentially this process here. So you're not making any, you haven't gone back to the property and captured a new Pano. No, it's not for the next session. We're going to keep it here. You can ask it again next time if you like. So let's say we've captured this Pano here, and I want to change something in this image. I want to change perhaps the outside lighting. It doesn't matter what it is. I want to change something. This is a Pano image replacement where I would download the existing panoramic shot, make my edits, and re-upload it here. Nothing new has changed. A Pano update would be when I've gone back to this property, I've taken another new Pano. The floor plan itself has not changed. There's been no renovations. They haven't knocked down any walls. But let's just say I took a Pano, maybe just slightly over here, or perhaps even in the exact same spot. It doesn't matter. But I've taken an entirely new Pano. That would be a Pano update. So those are the two differences. Pano update is you've captured new data. Pano replacement is you're just making an image edit to an existing Pano. And if I haven't explained that well, please do let me know, and I'll try and rephrase it. Because it's a common question, so don't feel out of place for asking that one. That's a good one. So Pano update is adding a new Pano. So you've gone back to the property and you've taken a new panoramic shot with your Planix or IMS5. So you've gone back, you've captured new data, a new Pano. That would be a Pano update. And then a Pano image replacement is just simply making edits to an existing panoramic shot that's already been processed on the portal. So Pano update, you've gone back, captured new data, and you want to have that data added to an existing iGUIDE. Here, we'll give an example. Let's say this was the first shot that was taken of this area. Okay, and I've gone back and I've now captured this spot over here because I prefer this angle and how it looks. Adding this new Pano would be a Pano update. However, if I only had this Pano, let's just say it had full data. But if I only had this Pano and I wanted to change the way this looked, or let's just say there was sensitive information on the wall, people's names or anything, you can actually, on the portal, you would download the image. Let me just see if I can navigate to that spot. So you could download the image, load it into your photo editing software, and you could blur out anything that is sensitive and then re-upload it Maybe there's family photos that they don't want displayed, but they forgot to take down. So rather than going all the way back to the property and reshooting, you could just download the image, blur out those faces, or if you're able, replace it with a different image, and then re-upload it to the portal. That would be a Pano image replacement. If you had to go back to the property and capture something new, let's say they took all the pictures off the wall and you didn't want to Photoshop that, or they didn't want it done, you have to go back to the property. That is a Pano update. So Pano will add new panos to the survey. So yes, what you would do is you would actually create a new project. So if let's say you had to go back to the property, you would actually create a new project, and you can call it, let's say the address _ update, for example, Pano update. So you're creating a new project, and you're going to take your new panos, and you're going to create a ticket, and you're going to send us those panos in using Dropbox, WeTransfer, Google Drive, whichever you prefer. You're going to make sure that that link is unrestricted so that we can access it. So a good way to test that is to right-click on the link before you share it with us, and see if you can open that link in an incognito window. If it asks you to log in, it's set as restricted. So you just have to configure your settings, and we can walk you through that through a ticket if you need help with that. But you would take your panos in a new project, you would load them into Stitch, make any adjustments that you need, like align them if necessary. Let's say you're reshooting the entire first floor. Save, export, but don't upload them to the portal. So you're going to get a pop-up on Stitch. Let's see if I can get that to happen. Oops, wrong thing. So you're going to, let's not open up Teams here. Goodness me. Okay, so you're going to save and export. I've got a whole bunch of things that I would need to deal with. But what's going to happen is it's going to say stitching all of your panos. And then after, it's going to ask you to export, to upload it to the portal. You're going to click cancel. You're actually going to go to your folder where you have your project, and you're going to have a new folder in here called _export. In there, you're going to have a .tar file. That's the file that you're going to upload to Dropbox or WeTransfer or Google Drive and just submit to us via the ticket system. And then our team will have our drafters update it for you. So you're not going to want to upload it again to the portal because you'll get double charged because your property will get drafted again. And assuming you just wanted a Pano update, you want to avoid the entire property being drafted twice. So that was a whole lot more information, but it's crucial to keep that in mind. So it's a new project, save and export it, but don't upload it to the portal. Just create a ticket and send us that info. When you do send us the info, just make sure that you include the iGUIDE URL for the existing iGUIDE. So you can say, hey, here's the iGUIDE URL. Please add these new panos and then provide us the link to your file sharing service and make sure it's unrestricted. And we'll take care of it from there. Good question. So in the new tar file, it's just going to be your new panos. There's no need for you to have the original and the new, because what that might do is it might actually delay the process a bit, because then our drafting team has to go through and figure out which panos are the old ones and which are the new ones. So to speed things up for everyone, just create a new project in Survey, load up that project into Stitch, save, export, and then do the rest of the process where you send us the files through the ticket. But you do not need to have all of those new panos merged with the old panos. We will do that, and it'll save you a lot of time, and it'll save our drafters time, which means that your update gets done that much more quickly. So tickets are, so the question is, how do we create a ticket? When you've logged into the portal, you'll see at the very top, there's the support tab. So click on the support tab. Time's up. So you'll click on support, and then you will see the create ticket option. I'm going to copy that link and I'm going to paste it into the chat section for everyone to see it. I would recommend you go there and bookmark that page so that you can create a ticket for any questions that you have pertaining to iGUIDE. And there's also the knowledge base articles. So you can go there as well. So if you have questions, you would check there if you like. I would recommend you check there first. Perhaps there's something that you can just answer yourself rather than creating a ticket. That being said, you create a ticket and we can help you pretty quickly. If you have an existing iGUIDE and you create a ticket, just make sure that you always provide us with the iGUIDE URL so that we can look at the iGUIDE that you're referring to and we can actually give you an answer. And speeds things out for everyone. So the technical support number there's the 2 toll-free numbers. Those are for on-site emergencies. So if you have general questions, please keep it to the ticketing system. We'd like to reserve our phone system for on-site emergencies. So, that the phone lines are free for when you have an on-site emergency, we are able to help you. An on-site emergency would be your camera's not functioning and you're not able to get it started. We're going to walk you through and get it going. But for everything else that's non-on-site camera emergencies, just create a ticket and we will help you rather quickly. And with that being said, and since there are no other questions coming in and we are over the time, I encourage you to join us for the next Q&A session. And anything in between then, feel free to create a ticket and have yourselves a great first week of the new year. Bye for now, everyone.